mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, what's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like Live. I'm Jared Ball. Again, happy to be here with you. But most recently, again, because I get these alerts, I was alerted to this, buying power phrase was brought up again in this lecture by Maggie Anderson. And I know many are familiar with Maggie Anderson and her husband because of the, Our Black Year book, where they talked about spending a year buying only from Black-owned businesses, and what power this is meant to. And that actually deserves its own more specific critique. And actually, if you read my book, the critique of it is there without being specific to it. And even in some of these other videos that I've put up since the book has come out, talking about how this myth permeates, I've already shown the flaws in that argument. So it may be an interesting experiment for one upper middle class Black bourgeois family. But in terms of redistributing wealth to the point that the entire Black community overturns its inequality, well, that's an entirely different discussion. Now, and on the one hand, if you want to say buy Black and support Black because you want to support and help Black people, that's great. If you then say support Black, buy Black because this is the pathway to liberation, that's where I think we need to have an intervention, so to speak, and that's where I certainly want to try to intervene, because that's an entirely different argument. And it's entirely false. Now, the specific point here, and this is where Dr. King gets brought in, because of course she's giving the Dr. King lecture, annual commemorative lecture at Emory University, her alma mater. So she gives this lecture, and then I want to show you the specific point that she makes in the lecture, and that is extremely revealing. That so in this summary of her lecture here, because I also got this in my alerts as well, author Maggie Anderson sheds light on MLK and Black-owned business. Now this is okay, so this is part of the rebranding that I do talk a little bit about in my book, that historical figures are taken in, are cherry-picked in isolation, out of, in a vacuum, out of their context, and often misquoted, misreferenced, misinterpreted for the very, very Black capitalist encouraged purpose of promoting Black entrepreneurialism as a pathway to Black liberation. Again, as I talk about it, my broader argument is that the broader politics of this is to draw us away from the radical analyses and movement power that we actually have, okay? So in this case, Dr. King is evoked to talk about how, let's just go to where, as she says, Anderson added that people didn't hear King say buy Black because he didn't have to. The Black businesses were right there funding his fight, allowing his audacity, she said. He didn't have to build them up. They built King up. We had economic unity. We were united, and united we always have more power than pain. End quote. Now, this is part of, again, this massive problem that we have, the rebranding of Dr. King out of his context, and in this case, wildly inaccurately, as I'm about to show you. But for the purposes of trying to rebrand the struggle as if it was somehow Black entrepreneurs and businesses that were funding and driving the civil rights movement, and not something that King would aggressively come back to critique himself. I don't know that it's intentional, but it is a misrepresentation, a misinterpretation of Dr. King. And it is meant to feed the bias of Black business and entrepreneurialism being the pathway. By the way, in that lecture, Maggie Anderson goes on to talk about Du Bois in the same context as well. Again, rebranding the most radical anti-capitalist critics of some of the more prominently known, at least, anti-capitalist Black critics in the modern era as people who supported Black business and entrepreneurialism and capitalism as a pathway to liberation. And it's really frustrating, and never mind inaccurate. So she's saying again People didn't hear King say buy black because he didn't have to, because those businesses were already right there funding his fight, allowing his audacity. Okay, that's deep. It wasn't the movement. It wasn't even, you know, the community or the church or the broader struggles or anything else. It wasn't the other organizations, the other elements of the struggle. It wasn't anything else. It was black businesses allowing his audacity. Okay. We didn't hear King say buy black because he didn't have to, she says. Well, in fact, he did say buy black. And he said it right here in his last full-length book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community? Where he says, you know, however much we pool our resources, Dr. King wrote, and buy black, this cannot create the multiplicity of new jobs and provide the number of low-cost houses that will lift the Negro out of the economic depression caused by centuries of deprivation. Neither can our resources supply quality integrated education. All of this requires billions of dollars, which only an alliance of liberal labor civil rights forces can stimulate. In short, the Negro's problem cannot be solved unless the whole of American society takes a new turn toward greater economic justice, end quote. There's so much demonstration I feel like getting into right now that would be inappropriate, but that's I mean, if that's not checkmate, you know, I mean, enough already. Okay, you know, so again, you don't have to agree with him, you don't have to agree with me, but I think it has to stop that this representation that business and buying black is a solution, and certainly if you want to argue that buying black is a solution, you would have to explain how Dr. King was wrong, rather than rebrand him and literally claim that he didn't say buy black because he didn't have to, when in fact he did say buy black. And I'm going to read it again, because what he said about buying black was, however much we pool our resources and buy black, this cannot create the multiplicity of new jobs and provide the number of low-cost houses that will lift the Negro out of the economic depression caused by centuries of deprivation. Neither can our resources supply quality integrated education. All of this requires billions of dollars, which only an alliance of liberal labor civil rights forces can stimulate. In short, the Negro's problem cannot be solved unless the whole of American society takes a new turn towards greater economic justice. That's page 51 of the Kindle edition of Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., published in 1967. Please join the channel, support the channel. Thanks to those who already have. And as always, to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time. Like Fred Hampton used to say, to you, we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time right here on I Mix What I Like Live. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.